Hello everyone, my name's Lee and today I'm going to talk to you about Brexit. Brief rundown on myself. I'm not a political activist or a vlogger or anything like that. I'm just an ordinary guy who cares about his country and wants to basically make a video and talk to you about Brexit and what's going on and what's been going on. I'm a builder, I fit kitchens for a living, married, got 2 kids both at university. I'm not, as I say, not a political activist. I'm just an ordinary guy that goes to work every day, lives in the real world, and has a couple of weeks every year in the sun, has a beer with my mates, and just lives an ordinary life. But I'm interested in politics. I did go out and campaign for vote leave during the referendum, knocked on people's doors and put my opinion across and asked them to vote leave, which thankfully people did. I used to also be a local councillor. Representing the Conservative Party, but I've not been politically active for 20 odd years. And as I say, I'm just interested in politics, interested in my country. Right, I'll try and keep this as brief as possible, and I'll try not to make any kind of verbal faux pas. But as I say, I'm not professional at this, so please bear with me. As you all know, the European Union, we've been a member for 40 odd years, and we had a referendum which was approved by the House of Commons. The vote of the people to whether we should remain as members of the European Union or whether we should leave, and we voted to leave, which was a miracle really, because I was of the mind that, having watched political goings on for the past 40 odd years, I'm 51 now, that the campaign was so politically biased towards us remaining. It needed an investigation really. I mean, the mainstream media and the government, for me, the referendum, their job should have been to give people like me and you the facts, the bare facts, and then we can make up our own minds. But they instead were giving us their opinions and everything, and the opinion seemed to be for us to remain. And you got the situation where David Cameron, whose idea the referendum was in the first place, got to the stage where he was predicting that if we vote leave, that we would have to have an emergency budget and the country would be plunged into a recession, which was a bit of a scaremonger tactic, as we only just come out of one. And also he got to the point where he was even talked about there could be the possibility of World War III. And he spent £9 million of taxpayers' money sending out a leaflet to this country, which was so politically biased in favour of Remain. It should have been investigated, but obviously it's not going to be. But even despite that fact, we still voted to leave the European Union, only by a very small margin, 52% to 48%. But regardless, we still voted to leave, and I'm pretty certain that if the campaigning and the coverage by the media and the Prime Minister and the government had been fair, that margin of victory would have been higher. As I say, it was a very, very impartial campaign, and it's a miracle that we vote to leave, but we did vote to leave. We've now got Teresa May in charge of the negotiations, who made no secret whatsoever that she is a Remainer and always has been a Remainer. So for her to do the job has always been difficult. If I was lucky enough to be Prime Minister in Teresa May's shoes, what I would have done was I would have said, okay, this is such a momentous thing for the UK, I am going to deal solely with Brexit. That's all I'm going to deal with. I'm going to appoint a Deputy Prime Minister who is going to do the job that the Prime Minister of this country generally does on a day-to-day basis, i.e. takes care of the domestic affairs of the United Kingdom. Obviously, if there's any massive decisions to be made or there's a national disaster or an emergency, then I will then liaise with this Deputy Prime Minister and the Cabinet. But unless that happens, I'm going to be solely devoted myself to getting the UK to leave the European Union, because this is a momentous part of British history. You've got to ask yourself, if the European Union was only a free trade agreement, which is what we initially signed up to and then we voted to remain as members of in 1975, why is it so difficult to leave? I mean, Scotland had a referendum on whether they should become independent, and their margin of loss for the independence movement was 45% to 55%. So their margin of loss was not that much different to the Brexiteers' margin of victory. So surely the Scots would have the right to say that they want a second referendum on Scottish independence if these Remainers get their own way and get what they're now calling euphemistically a people's vote, which is basically a second bite at the cherry. I mean, let's play devil's advocate here and let's try and look in the crystal ball. If we got a people's vote, as they call it, and the British public decided to remain as members of the European Union, do the people think that the members of the European Union, who we have caused untold stress and aggro to over the past 2 years, are just going to forgive and forget and say, oh well, you've changed your mind, so all the air miles that our diplomats have had to travel and all of the summits and all of the cost, that's all going to be forgotten. They're not going to do this. They are going to have a field day with us because they're going to see it as us surrendering to what has become a European federal project. I mean, anyone that knows anything about the European Union will now see that the European Union is all about creating a United States of Europe, which is fine. I mean, let the European mainland do this. This serves us well because when the European nations have been independent and nationalistic, we've had to step in alongside our allies across the Atlantic and the members of our former empire and Commonwealth to stop these people basically warring amongst themselves. And the cost of that has been astronomical for this country. I mean, I've done some calculations. I'm no mathematician, but I've done some research for this video and I've done some calculations and I've worked it out that in today's money, the First and Second World War cost Great Britain alone £10.9 trillion. That's not billion or million, trillion. That is 10.9 million pounds. So that's the equivalent of going to every person that lives in London, i.e. 10.9 million people, and giving every single man, woman and child that lives in London £1 million. That is how much the First and Second World War cost us. So for us to be giving 39 billion to the European Union for us to have the right to leave it's why are we giving that money away? It's 39,000 million pounds. We could build hospitals and schools and we could use that money within our own country. So, and there's no legal obligation for us to give this money to the European Union. We've just offered it up for some unknown reason when the Second World War cost us not only the First and Second World Wars not only cost us in the First World War's case 750,000 men and women killed and injured, and the Second World War 343,000 killed and injured and 61,000 civilians killed, but we're now paying for the privilege of leaving an organisation that wouldn't be there in the first place had we have not gone to war and saved the European continent. I mean, is there no sense of gratitude? If you look at the way that the European Union has not only treated the UK as a whole, but also our Prime Minister, their treatment has been absolutely disgustingly diabolical, and it just shows you the sort of people we're dealing with. I mean, where is the respect for what this country and what our people have given and done for mainland Europe? Where is the respect? The European Union's attitude should have been, well, you voted to leave, that's the right of your people, you had a fair and proper referendum and the people still voted to leave, so listen, you are a special case, you are Great Britain, if it wasn't for you we wouldn't exist, so good luck to you. If you need us, we'll be there to help you out, and hopefully vice versa, but we want to have a relationship with you which is nice and benefits both sides, but we understand fully that you want to be your own sovereign country. So why are they treating us like this? As I said, if Scotland had have won the right to become independent, I'm pretty certain that there would have been no mention whatsoever of a second Scottish referendum, and that Scotland would now be a separate country. And bear in mind that our union is over 300 years old, so it would have been easier for Scotland to leave the union of the United Kingdom than it has been for the United Kingdom to leave the European Union, which is only 50 years old. And bear in mind, in Scotland we share a head of state, Her Majesty the Queen, we share road links, infrastructure, we share an army, a navy, an air force. Can you imagine the complexities of trying to sort that separation out as opposed to the European Union? It's mind-blowing, but we would have found a way of doing it because whether David Cameron and Teresa May like it or not, this is what British people do. We organise and we innovate, and it's part of the British DNA to be able to do this kind of thing. And people are judging us by them. Don't go thinking that we might make a success of this country, because we always have and we always will make a success, because we are who we are. And even though we've been our national spirit has been kind of dulled down by the way people are educated in schools and universities, we are at heart what we are. So don't go thinking that we're just going to disappear, because that's not the case. Treat us with some respect, and we can have a nice relationship. I mean, putting Teresa May in charge of the negotiations, she is a Remainer through and through. It's a bit like having her driving a bus on a day trip, and she wants to go to a particular destination which is completely different to where all the passengers want to go to. So rather than going to where the passengers want to go, she just drives around and around in circles, to the point where the passengers are so sick of driving around in circles, they'll just go anywhere as long as it's somewhere. And this is Theresa May's entire bargaining. It's the way she's handled Brexit and handled the people of this country. And she walked into the negotiations in a strong position, because after all, you've got, that we know of, 3.8 million EU nationals living in the UK, and we've only got 1.5 million UK nationals spread amongst 27 countries of the EU. And 250,000 of those ones that I've just mentioned, the British, are pensioners who make no draws on the benefit system of the countries that they're in. They will be getting pensions from the UK and spending their money in the countries that they now reside in. And most of them don't even make a draw on their host country's health system. If they get ill, most of them fly back and have the operations done on the National Health Service. So all those people that are retired in Spain and Portugal and places like that, every penny they get from this country, they spend in the country that they're living in. They make no draw on that country. They are an economic beneficiary to their country. So Theresa May should have gone into the chamber and said, we've got at least 3.8 million of your European citizens in the UK. If you don't play ball with us, then I'm afraid that we're going to have to start a registration scheme for these people, and they're going to have to pay a fee to remain in the UK. Otherwise, they're going to have to leave the UK. But all the bargaining chips that she's got, she's just given these away. And she's agreed to every single demand that the EU has come up with. And, does Theresa May and people think that we didn't realise what we were voting to leave? We realised what we were voting to leave. We were voting to leave the European Union lock, stock and barrel, not just part of it, all of it. And that's what we voted to leave. So my message to Theresa May would be, just do your job, represent the people of this country that voted to leave and voted you into power, and if you can't do it, leave. The Brexit secretary, where is he? This guy is supposed to be in charge of Brexit, this new one. She's had 2 that's resigned already. Where is he today? She's over there doing the negotiations on her own. So what was the point in appointing the Brexit secretary when the man has got no power? As I said earlier, her whole premiership should have been about handling Brexit, and she's made a disaster of it. And she's like Neville Chamberlain getting off that plane with the bit of white paper denouncing peace in our time. It's not the case. She's just made a complete and utter pig's ear at this, and hopefully this won't go through Parliament and she'll be forced to resign, and we can have a Prime Minister of this country that represents, believe it or not, the people of this country, because that is who the Prime Minister of the UK is supposed to represent, and put us first. Forget about other people, put us first, because we need you, and we need you to represent us, because we voted you in. Anyway, I hope this has made you think about Brexit and Theresa May, and I wish you all a nice afternoon. Thanks for listening. Bye bye.